Okay. So we're very interested to see if the stream is backwards. That's going to be kind of important to know. So I'm looking forward to hearing from folks about if that is the case so that we can fix it. And so we're going to wait here and see if if there's anybody who would like to join us. And if so, then we will hop over to a much more polished character creation that we will go through in just a little bit here. And no, we don't have any audio for this. We are improving a little bit at a time here with our streaming and trying to make a little bit more out of that. So we have one viewer. Let me know, is this backwards? Is the stream backwards for you as you're looking at it? Or is it rightwards? Like which direction are the words that you're looking at on the screen here? And that will be important because I can then adjust it for later. And yeah, this is not the most exciting thing for later viewers. Please skip ahead if you're watching this in the future, of course. And I'll be looking forward to knowing if it is indeed a mirror image or if it is normal, like if that word that you're looking at is rightwards. That's a thing which I worry about. I'm going to assume that it might, in fact, be in good shape. So let's go ahead and get started with this. And I am fingers crossed here that, yes, excellent, very good. So we're going to be talking today about creating towards concept. The title of this stream and what you're looking at is we're talking about an elf bard. And you might think that that means I'm just going to make an elf bard, but no. I have something specific in mind for this, and we're really actually taking Pathfinder 2 out for a spin here and seeing how well it can create something that we have in mind, whether it really brings the goods when it comes to, like, I have a concept, I have an idea. It might have been a character from a previous edition of D&D, and in fact, that is what I'm thinking of right now. But notwithstanding that, I think it's still a really worthy trial. Like, can I make something that's a lot like a character that I used to play? And the character that I'm talking about here is the Beckme elf. Beckme is an edition of Dungeons and Dragons, which was compiled into, there were several box sets. It's the Mentzner or the red box edition of basic D&D. And back in those days, they had race as class. And that meant that what they did is that instead of being an elf bard or an elf magic user, you were just an elf. And it kind of boiled down all of the core concepts of an elf into one thing. So if you're familiar with later editions, how elves get a long sword and a longbow proficiency, and they get a couple cantrips, and they get all these little different bits that fit together to kind of make this sort of magical guy that has some fighting abilities and has kind of dabbles in magic, maybe is competent in stealth and that sort of thing. It's an assemblage. It's a core package of everything elf. I did this in 5th edition with an arcane knight, an eldritch knight, as an elf. And really what I like to do is sword and board. I like to be very flexible with kind of what he does in combat. Often you can't have the shield because you're going to need to cast with the other hand. And there's not a whole lot of Gish classes, especially out of the gate for first level, as far as spell casting and some martial ability in Pathfinder 2. And really all we've got to go on is the bard. So what I'm going to be looking to do is make the most fighty bard we can get and the most arcane bard. That's going to be the choices that we're going to be pushing towards. Is not a sing-song bard, not a performing bard, but I want to be leveraging all the choices that we're going to get from the system towards that. So without further ado, we're going to take on Pathfinder's character creation steps, a step at a time. So obviously we're going to be an elf, and this is what's going to happen to our character from there. I'm going to take this ancestral longevity feat because I think it really fits in with the bard class and leverages that. And this gets you a trained skill, essentially. Now, people say this is really powerful. Untrained is -2, trained is your level. It's you add your level to all your skill checks. And so that there's been some talk about how that seems like there's not enough spread between trained and untrained. But the key thing here is that the game master has the discretion to say someone who is untrained knows nothing about this. An example of this is that a barbarian with legal, a big bonus to legal expertise walks in the room and he can tell that Judge Judy is no nonsense. He is not going to be able to plead his case. The game master is not even going to let him do it. Well, in Judge Judy's courtroom. Yeah, I guess so. But, you wouldn't even get to roll to actually use legal tactics and so on, because that's not what the barbarian, he's not trained in that. He might have a wet behind the ears public defender if this was, Pathfinder Law and Order, and that guy might have a tiny little bonus, but he would be allowed to roll in the important circumstance. There's some talk about skill feats and how those we'll get to that basically. And we may get to that at the end of the stream. We'll pop into the rule book. But for now, I think that, this is an awesome thing to have, especially for a bard who's going to be called on, especially because I think that this sort of elf-gish character type is very useful in a smaller party if you're playing with 2 or 3 people. And this will let you fill in more gaps in the party's skill set with this talent or feat. You can tell I play a few other role-playing games besides D&D games. So this is what's going to happen. You get 2 ability bonuses or boosts to dexterity and intelligence, and you get an ability flaw to constitution. That feels very handicapping because, the proportional difference in earlier editions, when you take a hit to constitution, when you have a character with low constitution, it can be, the difference between 7 hit points and 6 hit points at first level. It's ouchy. It feels rough. Now, being an elf, you get 6 hit points from your ancestry, and then you're going to get another 10 from your class. So even if we left character creation with Constitution 8, we would still have 15 hit points. Now, that's a little low compared to most fighting classes, which exit character creation with 20. So I'm going to be trying to make up for that low constitution, but it's not nearly as killer. Now, fortitude saves are still important, and constitution-based saves and constitution-based skills are very important still. So it's not, I want this guy to be a competent Gish type character who has some arcane abilities, is, able to fight in the front line, and uses a lot of mobility. We could have chosen nimble to leverage sort of that sort of dancy aspect of the elf. But, I wanted to give a nod to the bard class. So that's why we picked ancestral longevity. So you get a 3rd free boost. And what are we going to take for that? We're going to take the charisma, because we do want to get out of character creation with the best charisma we can, because our spell casting is going to be tied to that. So let's get on to background. I think it's important, especially for this character concept, to narrative. Let's not game it. Let's pick a background that ties right in. And I'm going to check in with chat for anybody who's watching. Once we get to the elf bard screen, and by that I mean that we're really looking to get to the point where we've kind of picked our class, and we're going to be picking spells next, and we're going to be looking at kind of what does this character look in totality. So if you're hanging out, welcome. I'm the Complex Games Apologist. This is going to be the last stream that I do before I do a real official YouTube video for Pathfinder 2. But I think this is really a golden time to be sharing our enthusiasm for it. So hi, how are you doing? I'm hoping that all this is working. And in fact, I think I can't help myself. I've got to check chat. So it's okay. So nobody's chatting yet. So that's good. Or, well, it's not so good, but regardless, let's continue with this. So we're going to take the warrior background because we really want it to be tied into who this character is. We want him to be fighty, and we want to declare that loud and proud. So you do get some ability boosts at this stage. And this is why I talk about this being a life path style character creation. Some people are troubled by this because it feels more complicated, and it's just not a D&D type. We're not trying to build to perfection. We're trying to tell a story of this character's beginnings. We can do it in a way that is more optimal, that feels more better, and gives better numerical results. We can give a nod to that. That can be important to us. But ultimately, the character creation system is trying to help us create an entity in the fiction first. It's fiction first when it comes to life paths. And this is a very light white bread, wonder bread kind of life path. It's not nearly as complicated as some of the other games that I play with life paths, but I think it still captures some of the essence of what's so fun about telling the story of a character. So we're going to take a strength, and we're also going to bump up constitution, even though that's a free ability boost we could put anywhere. At this point, I want to say that this guy is a veteran and he achieved at least basic competence, as a trooper. And maybe this is someone who fought in a human war that left elf lands and decided he was going to do his part against an ancient evil. But he got disillusioned with human leaders, and humans squandered the gains of the war, and they ended up back in the same place they started. And so he's decided to be an adventurer and just right wrongs on a smaller scale. I think his name might be Tingal, not unlike my previous Gish elf. So we're going to look at this right here. I may have made a little bit of an error here, which is that I think I have this written up as if I'm getting a charisma boost here. And so keep that in mind. I think actually charisma is still at 12. And so let's move on here. So you get 4 boosts kind of telling the rest of the story. So charisma is actually at 14 here. And so we're going to tell more about how this guy is becoming a better warrior. He's seen a lot of campaigns. He's toughed it out. And this is going to be important. This is our reflex save. This is our armor class. This is our ranged attacks and our ranged touch attacks. And that's going to come into play when we pick cantrips and we start thinking about what he does in combat. Okay, so now we've picked the Bard class, and this is where we actually will be done with. We'll actually be done with stats now, and our charisma is 16 here. We end with the 16 in our prime requisite, and that's interesting. I think that's really worthwhile, and it's kind of fun. For skills, it's pretty easy what we're going to do because there are 7 signature skills with the Bard. And I think I'm not going to pass up any of the signature skills because I want this character to be as hyper competent as possible. And that's signature skills. I think that's where, you go from a regular success to a critical, and you go from a critical failure to a regular. That's the sort of thing that signature skills do for you. Is they change the basic result of your rolls in a way that kind of assures basic competence. So I'm going to pick all 7 of those. And then for my last one, I think I will pick stealth because naturally I think, an elf should be able to sneak some. We want to have kind of the most multi-classy sort of very distributed abilities, but this character is going to have a focus when he comes out of it. Talking about weapons, I think it's really important here to probably he's just going to walk out of character creation with as many of those weapons as he can carry. And it's partly because we're going to say he's seen a lot of campaigns. He's fought in humans wars. He's an elf and he had all that practice. And it also just kind of, it says, he's a jack of all trades. He's able to pick up any weapon, not any weapon, clearly, because he's a bard. He just has those. You're probably not going to do the whip because that leans towards the Indiana Jones and some other angles of it. So I don't think he would use one of those. But I think most of the time, what we'll probably be seeing is somebody who's got like a long sword and a short sword. We might use long sword and dagger, because that way we'll be able to throw with our offhand. And so we might be thinking about that. But we also want to carry a shield. And that's why, I'm really trying to leave character creation with a decent strength score, and 12 is going to have to do the trick for now. So these are the choices that we have to make when we're at the class step. And this is pretty simple stuff, actually. So we're going to pick a class feat. And in this case, we really don't have a lot of choices, but this one does kind of lengthen the duration of things. And that's kind of cool. It's not bad, and especially when it comes to the Inspire Courage. And I imagine that when it comes to using that particular ability, um, our bard, Tingal, the elf veteran, is really just lecturing his friends about kind of things that he's seen on campaign before. It's like, I've seen it all. I'm an elf. I'm 100 years old, kids. This is nothing special. Get over yourselves. Okay. So you have to pick a muse. We're going to pick the lore muse because he's a know-it-all. And that makes perfect sense to me. And then also you get that true strike, which is added to your repertoire, which I think, as far as, that dead eye moment where, your character's, he's zooming in and I think that that's a very much appropriate to this character concept. And I've taken 1,000 shots and missed 1,000. This is the one I'm going to hit because I have the experience. I can imagine something like that. Let's check chat before we move on to spell selection. Okay, there's still nobody here. That's cool. And I guess maybe I'm a little bit curious about whether this is working. I'm okay. So that looks good. Looks like it's working as far as that goes. So let's get into spell selection and let's round out this video at least. I know it's Friday night. Most people are probably actually playing Pathfinder 2. Good for you. So you got 4 cantrips to take and 1 spell. Sleep is kind of the best bang for your buck in my experience. It's a really good bang for your buck. Maybe I have some people waking up upstairs. They're probably cool. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, that's clipping a little bit. Okay, let's dial back in. All right. So to walk you through cantrip selection, I mean, I need to cast. I'm going to be casting 1 spell basically twice a day when this character starts, and so it needs to be something it doesn't do something he can already do elsewhere, and I think that's important. And with that in mind, sleep it's a favorite of mine. I cast it the other night in a basic D&D game, basic from the 1981 days. I'm trying out that game with some friends of mine, and it's really good there. And I don't dislike it here. It's a much tighter range. You're not going to put your friends to sleep on accident by any stretch of the imagination with this version of sleep. Ties in with that stealth choice that we made earlier, and it reinforces that. And then it just plays to a different side of the character. Telekinetic projectile is going to be sort of our clumsy replacement for mage hand. And I like that a lot. And dancing lights is our we don't want to be tying up a a hand with a light source. I might have to go upstairs for family reasons here. But suffice it to say, these are the choices, and I think we got to the result that we were looking for with this character. Um, let's make an emoji in chat and say hi to whoever comes later here. Um, I think the Pathfinder 2 is coming along nicely, basically, is what I'm going to say. And I think that it's been a lot of fun, basically. Just kind of discovering that it's Pathfinder 2 is okay, essentially. And I'm really happy to find that out. And uh, it seems like I think a lot of the criticisms I'm going to have to kind of tackle um, as people as people go into this, and they kind of run into. Am I that quiet? Yeah, I am a little bit. Yeah, it's because toddlers sleep upstairs, so we need to deal with that. Um, Suffice it to say, um, I'm happy with this game, and I think that it has exceeded expectations so far. And there's a little bit of talk about how skill feats, it's like anybody who knows how to have survival should be able to recognize animal poop, and that's like one of the skill feats is relating to that. And my reaction is this skill feat says something special. It says this guy can do better. It doesn't say everybody else can't. And that's one of the traps that I think cognitive traps that people fell into back in the day. And an example of that is, like "Well, you can't disarm your opponent." And it's like, no, you provoke an attack of opportunity, like an old Pathfinder. Um, and that's significantly different um, than it's significantly different to think of it that way than to say you can't do it. Maybe you walk away and you try and fake out your opponent and you consume his attack of opportunity. In the case of this skill feat that people are thinking negatively about, um, maybe the guy who doesn't have it takes longer. Maybe he just finds one animal, or maybe he takes an hour to analyze the environment. Um, I'm just not a game master who says you can't. I'm not a guy who is going to do that. And I don't think that feats that say that someone can do better are locking the game into that perspective. I think that it's a different way of thinking, and it's a way of thinking that I'm not terribly fond of, basically. Because I think we can do better. If you think the Pathfinder 2 is fun, let me know. I hope later viewers got some value out of this. And unfortunately, I think it's probably time for me to check in with family and see how they're doing. And I see maybe we could dial this up. No, even that's not particularly great. Um, it's interesting what YouTube does with this with the microphone input. I'm using virtual cam and OBS. I haven't gotten to stream keys and all that business, and maybe I will later. But for now, this has been a fun couple of days doing these streams, and expect like a real video coming up soon. Okay, good. That's good because I don't want to overdrive the mic because there is a big old knob right here. Um, yeah, skill feats. It will be, I think, a topic for discussion. They might get their own video just kind of refuting that because I think you can do better doesn't say your basic dude can't get the job done. Nor does the idea that the untrained character, is getting a bonus. He's still untrained. There's things that he just can't do. But I think that a level 20 wizard, he can sneak a little bit. He's been through 20 levels of adventures. I mean, sort of part of me is asking, like, why couldn't previous level 20 wizards sneak a little bit? We picked lore, and that's because we got True Strike, because we were looking to really we're looking to try and make a Beckme, a Metzner D&D elf, like race as class, and so we're trying to build towards that concept, and that's what we had in mind with that, a little bit like Link, if you will, and that's that might be a touchstone for some people. I'm gonna go through the presentation real quick. We picked ancestral longevity, so we leveraged that. Um, we did warrior because we wanted to narratively kind of embed the character concept, and then getting in here, so we picked lore, and then we got lingering composition, so that the idea is he's really bossy. He's seen a lot of campaigns, and he knows what he's talking about when it comes to inspire courage, and so it sticks around a little bit longer. And then for spells, we did a little bit of creepy magic with chill touch, so that his friends are like, what kind of magic? Who is that guy? He seems weird. And then we took dancing lights to play that up, and also so that we had both hands, so that sometimes we can use a bow, and sometimes we can use a shield, and so on. And I really like dancing lights because it doesn't give away your position. So you can cast a dancing light while you're in the dark. You can be in a dark position, send out a dancing light, and light someone up to shoot them. There's just cool tricks like that that I think they work with a character like this. Telekinetic projectile, I think the thing that's on my mind for that cantrip is doing it as a derpy mage hand. Like, I can telekinese things, but they end up, end up stuck into the wall behind me because I threw them so hard. Like, we need that thing over there, and I'm gonna. So I imagine he's so bad at mage hand that he does damage with his mage hand. Essentially, that's sort of how I would role play that. And then sleep, I just think is good, and it's sort of such a it's a wow spell, as in, like, when it works, people are like, wow, he really is good at magic. And so part of this character is that he dresses to impress. It doesn't mean that he can actually do everything, but that wowzers effect, I think, is important. As far as equipment, we're not going to talk through that, because in this case, I think and flares when it comes to dancing light. I agree, Paul. Yeah. So short bow, I want to use it. Two swords, probably want to use that. Shield, sword, and board, definitely want to use that. Part of it is just actually confusing the enemies about who this guy is. And yeah, thank you, Jaden. We are winding down the stream right now, and in fact, I think it's about time to say good night. And we're going to be answering some of the critics, because I think we finally heard what's going on with them in totality. So we're good. If you enjoyed kind of what I did, trying to get a little bit more professional with the stream, let me know. I mean, it could have been a very dull PowerPoint for all I know. Certainly, it's Friday night, and it's a much more chill night in the internet. I know that. So stay chill, everybody.